Fancy intro screen. Welcome back, everybody, to Program Live. I'm your host, Nick Taylor, and we have a jam-packed lineup today. We've got an awesome panel here today. We're going to be talking about how people AI. This is volume 2. For folks who might have seen the thumbnail, I'm kind of doing Guardians of the Galaxy theme, but I digress. We're going to jump right into it. We're just going to do some quick intros. I'm going to just go by who I see on the screen here. So, Anthony, if you just want to go ahead and intro yourself and say hi.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Been on a bunch of Nick streams in the past. I'm a developer advocate, currently in between roles right now. Actually, I just finished about a 9-month stint teaching AI to enterprise devs at ADP. It's very fun. Could talk about a lot of that. And I built a tool called Auto Show that you can find at auto.show, which is kind of a general content processing thing. It takes in audio, video, and documents and generates video, images, text, all sorts of crap. So yeah, and I also use AI in lots of all of my development. I would say I've been vibe coding since like 2023 before it was responsible. And yeah, happy to be on here with everyone and looking forward to chatting.
Cool. Awesome. Jim, you want to go ahead?
Yes, hey everyone. I'm Jim. I'm a principal developer experience engineer. Yeah, what a very long title at a company called Arise AI. We basically prove just how sucky your AI is, so you can fix it. I've been an AI cynic for a long time, and I love what I do because I basically get to help people test just how bad their AI is, and then help them actually fix it, make it reliable. Because we all know it's a bit sucky.
Cool. Awesome. Serge, you want to go ahead and intro yourself?
Yes, sir. My name is Serge. Right now I'm running a bunch of different projects, working as a fractional CTO at a customer success company called Extendly. I'm hosting a community called Hello Miami that brings together developers twice per week. And I just started a position as builder in residence at the Lab Miami, which is a venture / community center that's empowering local entrepreneurship in Miami. I've been a software engineer for like 20 years. I've built every type of app that you can imagine with many programming languages and technologies. Obviously, I love TypeScript today, but AI is helping me be more confident and go in TypeScript. So I love that about it.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. Heather, did you want to go ahead and intro yourself?
Sure. I'm Heather Downing. I'm a senior developer advocate at Yugabyte, but I've been in developer advocacy for a hot minute, so I've seen a few of these folks before. And some people actually just call me by my handle because I'm old enough to have a handle. It's Coraline, in case you're wondering how to pronounce that. So often at conferences, people will call me Coraline. Totally acceptable. I've been programming since 2009, so that puts me at over 15-year mark. And I have been working at Yugabyte, who is a distributed Postgres company that has now taken on like the massive agent memory and context layer as well, because data is everything right now. So yeah, lots and lots to talk about today for sure.
Awesome. You want to go ahead there, Avi?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Avindra Fernando. I go by Avi. I'm the principal architect, software consultant based in Kansas City. I founded Taproban Consulting and been working with a variety of different clients on their projects. Lately, one of our goals is to bring AI-based solutions into their existing platforms. So a lot of the clients that I work with, what they want is they have their existing platforms and they're like, yeah, what can we do, right? How can you help us with it? So if anyone have any projects like that, I would love to have a chat and go from there. Been in the industry for a very long time, and I think I already know a lot of you folks as well. So
awesome. Okay, cool. Just gonna drop a few other links here. Drop some links to Yugabyte, Taproban, where you're working at, Avi, and also Arise.com, where Jim's doing cool stuff.
Yep.
Cool. So why don't we, I guess, just kind of jump into it. So the topic is very open, but it's like how people AI, and I guess just curious, how people are using AI in their day-to-day, and you know, we can start wherever, you know, feel free to chat about whatever, but we can touch on harnesses, models you're using, workflow, skill, whatever you want to, maybe some evals if Jim's up for it.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with you, Heather? Why don't you go ahead? I saw you mention something about agent memory, so I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, it's, you know, this all reminds me of cloud, right? So people say, I do AI. What does that mean? Do you remember for about 10 years, you were saying we did cloud. And then by the time we got specific, then you knew that somebody probably actually knows what they're talking about, because we've played with the different pieces of what it means to be part of the cloud. What it means to be part of AI is a huge area. And so like the takeaway from the product that we've been working on is high level context that's shareable. So it's not, that's a takeaway, but what that means technically is agent memory. But it's also human memory. So right now I'm a really bad note taker. And so I have been using some of the frontier AI chatbots that we all know and love out there and sometimes hate, to see how far we can take them. But they don't really share a lot of that stuff. And so when I started working at Yugabyte last year, I thought I was just going to work on Postgres. And then right about January, we were like, you know, yes, AI agents can use Postgres, but it actually isn't just about that. It's about working across different pieces of the org, different humans to different agents. And what does that even mean? So can we have all of the topics in one place that we can share it? And that's done myriad ways. So I'm interested to hear how everybody else is doing this right now. But we settled on we needed to keep stuff in one place. And we thought it could just be a Postgres database. And you can sort of do that, but there are so many people that are not technical that could not tell you whether or not their agent was properly doing an insert into that database. They had no idea. And so the question was, can we create new primitives? I'm not trying to make this a pitch, because I was part of this in the beginning going, we have to get more simple, please, more simple. There's so many things that are happening right now. It's exhausting that we needed this to be very simple. So this has been a lot of hard work to work on. So the way that we use our own dog food project, which, by the way, if you're not using your own product or your company, I don't know what to tell you. But the early adopters to this product, it's called Miko, because it stands for like memory and knowledge, like portmanteau. Yeah, it's basically the first early adopters were salespeople. Like it wasn't even the devs at first. We built it for them, but it turned out that salespeople were like, how do we know what somebody talked about? How do we know if somebody left off? What if they quit? What if the onboarding, offboarding, the knowledge transfer was so rough? But everybody had their own tools that they liked to do, and nobody wanted to standardize on anything, because why would you? Everything's changing so much. So we standardized on the data layer itself. They're like, look, at first we were going to use like Google Drive, and then it became, but I don't want all of Google Drive. I just want like this much of it, or I only want this for this person. It became, so basically Miko is, if you look under the hood, is almost row level, like sharing permission based inside of a context. You get to decide what the topics are and kind of put them all together. We call it a data pack, and say, hey, this is about, I don't know, like the AI Engineer World's Fair. Everything's in there, whatever you're going to do. Or this is all about this project that we're building with our engineering team, but that the docs team also needs to know about. And also marketing needs to know how that's going to change their messaging. And it becomes like this, how do we know where people are? And we just point our agents at it and say, what's going on? And we share either our conversations or specific memories that the agents have. That's what's funny about it. Jim knows a lot about this, but it's like the memories are the perspective of what the agent thinks is going on, which is different than like the raw text that you see back and forth between you and whatever agent of your choice saying, do this or don't do that, or whatever research. That's just the raw text. Then there's like the thought process it has. Then there's like, what the heck did it touch? And how does our compliance and security people feel about that? And everybody was interested in the same thing. So we just put it in a data layer. And that's what this is. And so it's all over MCP.
Okay.
And that's what at first it was like we built a CLI, and then it was like, who wants to use that? Well, only certain people want to use that. And then it became, maybe it should be a connector, and it is like a living thing. So how we AI changes so much because it has to, because we're basically just trying to get context from different people in the same place. So I am doing a whirlwind tour of the different ways people think AI is done. So I'm interested in everybody else's here.
Cool. You mentioned Jim, so we'll jump to you, Jim, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was actually going to dive in with this one because Heather, you mentioned like sales folks in terms of doing this. So one thing we've been doing is we've kind of insisted, we are an AI company. Our job is to help you evaluate, observe, fix your AI. So we want to make sure AI is deep across everything we do. And so we make sure that everybody in the company is an AI expert. And so we actually have a repo. It's our sales and marketing agents repo. And it is literally designed for I don't want to say non-technical, because really that's not kind of fair these days, but it's designed for the non-engineer folks to have the tools they need to use AI to do their job. So literally, we've got sales folks spinning up Claude Code and saying, who met with this customer, or what happened here, where we are in this pipeline, help me construct a slide deck based off this call. And it kind of mines all the data that we have across the systems. So, things like Gong calls. Gong is one of these call recorder thing that sales folks use for tracking their calls and all that. And literally, we've got that connected to our agents repo. So in Claude, someone can say, who met with this customer, summarize the calls, and it will use skills that the more technical folks are building, and then connections to Gong and Salesforce and HubSpot and so on and so on and so on, and to bring all that data together. I mean, we're not quite as fancy as you. We don't have a cool context data layer. We should probably have our engineers have a chat with you at some point, Heather, about all this. But there's just this idea of we have all this information, all these different systems, and what a lot of sales account folks were spending time doing is just mining these different systems.
Yep.
So if we can build the skills to do that, if we've got the more technical folks who can build that, we can then say to non-technical folks, here's your chatbot, which is essentially Claude, Claude Code, Claude desktop, whatever, and go. And they've suddenly been empowered to use these tools. They don't have to understand how it works. They don't have to understand the testing that we're doing internally. It just works. And these folks are now using AI, and they live in the tools. The same as like a lot of developers now have 3 or 4 Claude codes going at the same time. Right now, I don't have a Claude code running, which is very unusual for me. But now we have sales folks doing the same thing. They have 3 or 4 Claude sessions going at the same time to access that data. So really, the problems we're solving, I guess, as an industry as a whole, is about how do we take the information that we've got in all these different things and package that up using MCP connectors and skills and what have you, and expose that to our users. We're just building a different UI, essentially. Where before we'd build a 3-tier system with a data layer and an API layer and a UI. Now the UI is Claude Code. We're thinking about this layer in the middle. We're kind of building that middle tier using skills, MCP connectors, and so on.
Yeah, no, we'll go over to Avi in a sec, but 100% there. Like, there's been like, I was at the MCP Dev Summit in New York was it earlier this year or last fall? I can't remember. Time is all a blur. But like I went to a mock MCP funeral. They had like a string quartet that was it was very funny, but like obviously they were poking fun at people saying MCP's dead, and MCP's got a new spec update, it's stateless now. There's a lot of good stuff in it, but I think I'm maybe generalizing here, but I think a lot of devs said they prefer CLIs because that's just what they like, just being on their machine. I do a lot of stuff with MCPs. We have an MCP gateway, but like the thing is, like, you got to think of the normies. My mom is not going to be spinning up a CLI, right? She's going to go into ChatGPT and just say like, I'm trying to find a vacation in France, and like all of a sudden the booking.com connector kicks in or something, you know what I mean? So I think remote MCPs specifically are a great way to package that stuff, and they come with skills too now, and just skills in general is just a great way to, like, it doesn't matter what harness or agent you're using, it's like available in all of them. And I think, just like how APIs became kind of uniform all over at some point, But I wanted to go over to you, Avi, because you're obviously speaking to a lot of clients, and I'm curious, like how you're leveraging AI in your day-to-day, but like also like kind of what you're seeing, because like I feel like we're in this like Twitter bubble, because like I go to a party sometimes and somebody be like, yeah, we just got Copilot on Office 365, and meanwhile I've got somebody telling me that loops are dead, graph is the thing now, and now it's software factories and you're not going to make it. So it's like just curious what you're seeing as you speak to folks on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. There's just that's the beauty of software consulting, right? So you get to work with a lot of different clients who are at different parts of their journey. So whenever I think I approach AI-based solutions, what I like to think of it as like, what if this AI system was human, right? What mistakes would it do, and all of that, and that's helped me a lot. Like, for example, when we first like started recommending to people like who don't have any AI-based solutions, one of the first things we would do is to recommend an agent's MD file or a Cloud MD file. Now, there are clients who've already started with that journey and then they've already added it. But when you go in there and you look at that file, like, it's just humongous. You're like, oh, what are y'all doing, right? Like, it's finding that balance of, hey, do we load this brain that gets loaded every single time on every single prompt with all the information that you need, right? What if it was a human? Like, if you just go dump a whole bunch of wikis onto a human, how well would they perform? Like, if they just joined the company, right? So that's the kind of thing that I'm tweaking with different companies at the different journeys, is how do we get the right amount of data, the right amount of context to your domain, your use case for your workflows. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. No,
that's awesome. Yeah. And just kind of want to, we'll go around and then we'll keep bouncing around all over. But Anthony, I know we've talked about it on a few streams, but you've been building out something called Auto Show. That's one thing, but like, just curious in your day-to-day, how you're leveraging AI, or maybe, we'll get into like what agents people are using or harnesses, like there might be some Pi or OpenClaw people here, or Flu, or who knows, or just the regular ones, who knows? There's too many, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm coming at this from a very different perspective from everyone else here, because everyone else here is like at big organizations and are working on super, super interesting problems. For me, I am very focused on how do I increase my own dev velocity, and more from like an indie hacker kind of perspective. I'm not really trying to like make a product though to make myself a millionaire. Like, for me, I'm kind of just building tools for myself or for like my friends and family who are non-technical and who can kind of struggle with some of the higher level things with AI. So like Auto Show, for me, like myself and my wife are the primary users, and I use it to kind of ingest lots of content and summarize it and make sense of it. Because there's so many podcasts I'm into and get content and stuff, but it's really hard to keep up with. So I've kind of created systems that allow me to like summarize and get high level ideas. And then my wife she's like writing a book now, so she'll use it to do like literature reviews. And I feel like there's just so many things AI can do, and us as devs, we can envision all of this stuff. And now we also have the tools to kind of like build them out. So I also think what you were saying about like the MCPs versus CLIs, to me, like, it still comes down to like, if you want, quote unquote non-technical users to be able to do something, it's UI or not UI. Like, there's a front end or there's not a front end. And that's the most important thing, is giving people a good front end that they can make sense of, and also get a sense of the capabilities. So giving them like pre-written prompts that can do cool things, then also let them go to the lower levels, like rewrite the prompts or write their own custom prompts. Then like, once they can see some of the things it can do, then they can start to envision their own ideas of how they could extend the tool as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's really great. We'll get to you in a sec, Serge. I just know, Jim, you wanted to kind of touch on something that Avi was mentioning.
Yeah. So obviously at Arise, our job is to prove that the AI works. Okay, so we do what's called evals. We basically take your you take your AI app and we can run tests against it. It's all very cool. But one thing we've been thinking about is how do we test these skills? So you're saying, Avi, about kind of this agent MD, it's just full of all this craft. How do you know when it's changed and when it doesn't change? And this is something that I've been working on. I'm just going to share my screen and show off a pull request briefly, just to kind of touch on this. So we have, this is going to pop up. So we have a public skills repo. So you're like a lot of companies, we have these skills, you MPX skills, install it, and it does stuff. I mean, I was looking at one of our skills that did instrumentation. So this will take your application and add all the code you need to interact with Arise. And the repo was great, but it was slow and it wasn't working some of the time. And the problem with AI is it works sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes, test on vibes, whatever. So it's like, how do we productionize this testing? So I literally built a whole set of tooling which would take the skill and run it in a sort of well-defined scenarios and then measure the outcome. So it's, run this, here's a whole lot of applications that don't have instrumentation, run the skill against it using Claude Code and Codex and this model, and then check, did it instrument correctly? As in, if I run the app, does it send things through to Arise, and so on and so on and so on. And because I could run these tests, I was actually able to plan out my changes and verify that they worked. So I raised this pull request in our skills thing, and suddenly we've dropped our actual skill MD file from 227 lines to 49 lines. We've kind of split things out into different files. We've added missing sections. We've reduced sizes. This reduces a typical run from 15,000 tokens to 4,500 tokens. And then in terms of how it works, I'm seeing that it was getting it right 74% of the time. Now it's 83% of the time. When it does get things half right, it went from 13% to 50%. And so it's just kind of taking this approach that these skills are great, but you can't even just manually go through and change it. You need to build the measuring infrastructure. It's kind of just how we've been doing as devs for years. We've have like unit tests on everything, and this still applies to things like skills. So it's kind of really cool that you can actually validate your changes, not with the vibes of I ran it and it was okay, but actually kind of through more structural testing.
Yeah, for sure. Serge, I don't know if you want to jump in here and talk about some personal tools and stuff.
Definitely, yes. So I have a couple of things that I wanted to show you today, and you guys have talked about how you specifically Anthony builds personal tools for himself. I'm very much in that camp. I'm currently on a journey of scaling these tools beyond myself, but I'll show you one of them here, and if we have time, I'll show you the other one.
Cool. Let me just bring that in.
Yeah. Cool. So this is a tool that I built to collect all of my sessions across Claude Code, Codex, and OpenCode, and I've been back in Claude Code a lot recently. But the idea here being, I have all of these projects and all of these organizations, and including my own project as well, that I am talking to agents, and I found myself consistently complaining to the agent because it spoke in a tone of voice that I didn't like, or it used some slop that I didn't like. And I got tired of fine-tuning what the agent cared about and how it talked. And so I started collecting all of this data. This is, if you do some math here, about, like 2,400 sessions. And I started mining it with the help of agents as well, but also some deterministic inference here. So a little bearing. And so out of the way that I correct agents, I extracted a list of things and then slimmed it down to like 9 things. And so these 9 things are at the core of what a good experience for me is when I'm using an agent. Out of that, then bootstrap knowledge graph and an ontology for it, and start putting together some agent grounding. this is just observation, but then it really gets interesting with this little persona research that I did. And if you've been super engaged in the Twitter sphere, you might remember Carpathy's auto research. And so I borrow some ideas from there. And if you're not familiar, auto research is the idea of giving a very constrained workspace to an agent and a markdown file that gives it a methodology for self-improvement and the ability to change the code that trains it. So I took that same idea, made myself this rubric of the things that I wanted to see. For example, this might be better to see. There we go. I want verified outcomes, low correction burdens. So like, I don't want to have to correct the agent a lot. I want it to be efficient. I wanted to check its work. I wanted to only access the information that it needs for the task at hand. I want it to talk to me in a very specific way. And I want the Claude.md or agents.md or like the Soul.md, if you're using OpenClaw, to be simple so that I can understand it. And then I assigned some weights to it. And what I started from was like some agent persona. You can think of it as like Soul.md.
Okay.
That can be overlaid onto an agents.md or a Cloud.md. And then built a harness that takes samples going back X amount of time and run 3 different iterations on it. And then use an LLM as a judge to evaluate, those samples of conversations with this agent persona. How did the output change? And assign a score in these 9 things. And so the result of that is, the first one, very first agent persona that I put together scored 26.50 out of 100 in those 9 that weighed average. And by doing this on a loop, I've been able to get it to like 92.5. The way it works is just like auto research. It'll try to do some tweaks to that agent persona document. And you can see the diff here, the things the changes that it made based on the things that I told it. Here's how I'm going to measure you. And then it reran some conversations that it did that in a loop. And you'll see here, I've got, I think 8 iterations, but this is the 8 that I've kept. In this discard pile, there's a bunch of them that I ended up removing. So right now I could go and say, hey, run 3 more. And it's just going to run them. And it's going to try to improve that persona that I have by making some, more fine tunes to the agent persona. I haven't been able to improve it much. So I build this for myself. I take that resulting persona and then bring it into my, I was showing you here, into my Claude sessions and my Codex sessions and open code sessions. And that's been helping a lot in getting the agent to behave the way that I want. The next thing for me with this is, okay, how do I scale this to an entire team? And I'm involved with different organizations, so they all use different tooling. So how do I put this into like a central place that they can govern so that, they can trust it? And then crowdsource what an agent would look like that is successful for these specific organizations.
This is really cool. Is this open source?
Yeah.
It is meant to be MIT. It's a mess right now, but yes, that is what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a very, very cool tool. I'm super impressed.
Oh, thank you. Out of that, there's also like some ontology mapping. So like deterministic reasoning that's behind all of this. And this is another area of research. This also will be open source. And then I've been using that to ground this agent, which is like my workspace where I build personal tools for myself. This is like a micro front ends and the micro, like modular monolith. And then I can talk to an agent. It builds an application. I don't like what it does. And then I have like this improvements Kanban board. So again, take something and assign it to the agent. Right.
Cool.
So like in general, right? These are examples, and this one, the workspace that I'm showing you right now, this is open source. It's on my GitHub. The other two need some cleaning, but the idea here is federating discovery of what an agent persona looks like that is successful for a specific organization or a specific person.
Oh, very cool. And I know Jim was saying in the private chat, evals for the win.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and the cool thing you're doing there, and I think this is something we're seeing a trend in the whole eval space, because the whole point of evals is, we prove it works, but what's the next step? What's the next step? And you're kind of hooking to that self-improving software loop, this kind of software factory idea that, I've got my agent running, my agent's doing something, I've built these rules to decide, is it working, is it not working? And when it's not working, the AI can then fix the code and loop it again. So you end up with we were many years ago, like the 1980s, we were talking about genetic algorithms. This idea that you'd have an algorithm that would then mutate, and then you'd have criteria and it would slowly evolve. That's essentially what we're doing now with evals. And what you're doing there is your AI is tweaking the agent, and because you've got that testing cycle, you can see that improvement happening. So you're building a software factory there with that, which is very, very cool.
And
ultimately, the hope is that some of these things generalize into an ontology that I can use a semantic reasoner for, so that I can stop relying on an LLM as a judge for everything. And so, that's also going to be a little swim lane that runs, parallel to this.
Yeah, no, very cool, man. I'm not sure why fuzzy in the chat. I think Anthony was saying fuzzy in the chat's always kind of anti-AI. I'm not sure why he says evals are still evil, but I guess the only thing we talked about this before, Jim, but it is kind of funny that you're using something non-deterministic to evaluate something non-deterministic to get a pretty high probability of something happening. It does sound funny when you say it, but it is pretty cool. And obviously it's not the same as unit tests. Like unit tests, input goes in, always expected output. This is more like, is this threshold good enough for us for the eval? And I still haven't dug too much into evals myself. It's something on my to-do, but I definitely see the power of it. And 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 there's also, like you were talking about, like LLM as a judge and stuff, and like AI is still very heavily subsidized right now, and obviously we're starting to see cracks where people are starting to increase the pricing and stuff. But like if you don't have to be using LLM as judge, or like even what Jim was saying before with his skill about reducing the number of tokens, as you get to more expensive models like Fable or something, that's super important. And there was something that in hindsight is super obvious, but somebody posted it on X the other day. Be very careful when you do compaction, especially on more expensive models, because it's compacting it, but then it's summarizing it, so you're still sending a crap load of stuff. So he was basically, I forget who it was, but they're basically saying if you're using something like Fable, don't compact that often, because it's actually potentially more detrimental at a cost perspective. Which I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But
and this is super interesting, right? So I've been a self-hosting advocate for many years. And I have a couple Sparks sitting back there, and I'm just trying every model that comes out. And I've been getting really good results with some of the like parallelism on two Sparks with DeepSeek and some Nemotron models. There's definitely a lot of things that we just throw to the top of the line model that we don't need to be, like not necessary. Right.
Well,
so
this is the time to do it while it's being subsidized, though, to be fair.
Go ask Fable about that.
It's as cheap as it's ever been.
But this is got the big advantage of having all your evals set up, is you can then swap to a cheaper model and test it.
Yes, sir. I also think that the market is rewarding this, because like we all saw the Open Router acquisition and the rise of Vercel AI Gateway and Cloudflare as an AI gateway. So really interesting. I like that pattern because it lets you, like Jim was saying, it lets you swap out, the actual model that serves a specific ask dynamically, based on signals, deterministic or probabilistic.
Yeah.
I definitely think
And,
there's a future there with the smart routing, this idea of, you have a supervisor agent that decides which sub-agent to pass it on to. That can run on the smallest, crappiest model, because all it's doing is going, oh, you've asked about orders, I'm going to send you to the order agent. You've asked about a sign-up, I'm sending you to the sign-up agent. So you don't need Fable for that. And, there's just that decision, because as we're building these really complicated multi-agent systems, this idea of, yes, I'm going to just set everything up to use GPT 5.6 Sol. No, you don't have to use the same agent for every single part of your system.
That's right.
And I'm a big fan of these local agents. How long before we start seeing people running these teeny tiny models on whatever piece of commodity hardware they've got kicking around their network just to make decisions, to work out where to farm out requests to. So I really see a future there, that as we build these multi-agent systems, it's not just I can choose the model for everything. It's the model will choose different models and really optimize the cost. I wouldn't be surprised there's a big rise in companies focusing on that cost optimization once that subsidization goes away.
I'll go a little bit further. I would expect that at some point that router will actually become deterministic, or to an extent deterministic. So if you can do named entity recognition and you can do semantic reasoning, like deterministic semantic reasoning, the only thing that you would need to have an escape hatch is you reify your own knowns. And if your deterministic reasoner cannot find something that it's certain about, then yes, you send it to an LLM reasoner and then use an LLM reasoner as a router. But for most things, if you have a strong deterministic representation of your domain space, this is not a general case, but if you have a good representation of the domain that you're working on, then a deterministic reasoner should be enough. And it's also a virtuous cycle, in that the more you use the system, the more you feed a deterministic reasoner, the better it gets, right? And then the other side of that argument, where in parallel to that argument, yes, LLMs are subsidized right now. In the future, we might see, and I think we're seeing that already, more total cost of ownership being a concern. But there's also other things, like, for example, for real-time use cases, latency is a big constraint, and that might, that might reflect which model you pick out of two that are, quasi-equivalent. You might pick the one that has the least the lesser latency, right? And
you think about the data Stripe published a while ago that said for every 100 millisecond delay in rendering a purchase, it reduces the chance of a purchase by 3.5% or something like that. Same kind of thing. If you're buying via a chatbot, the latency of the chatbot may make you go, it's taking too long, I'm going to not bother. So there could be a dollar value with that latency. And also, as well, it's not just the token cost. We think about tokens as having a cost. It's the cost of completing a task, because some models may be cheaper on tokens but use more tokens to complete a task. We're seeing this. We've been doing a lot of cost analytics across different models, and Opus 5, that devours tokens. It takes substantially multiples more tokens than other models to do the same job. So, it's not just how much am I paying per token. So I saw a thing the other day that OpenAI were looking to start pricing by successful completion of task for some of their enterprise customers rather than raw tokens. So they're noticing this issue as well.
I
think what's... sorry, I thought Heather was going to say something.
Token cost is the one thing that has hit us pretty hard, because if you want to embrace whatever way you want to use AI is fine, because we're in this renaissance period of figuring out what that is. We don't want to tell any of our engineers to not try something, but oh my goodness, we needed some really good data to kind of show us what was the ROI of this. So it depends on yes, choosing the right model for the job, for sure. You may not know that, though, until you play around, and it depends on how deep they go. The other thing that we discovered, though, was being very strategic about when to introduce context. And that's why, instead of this being an, throw everything at the whole kitchen sink and everybody has access to the kitchen sink, it's like, can we just really narrow what context is going on? Like, I actually don't have my work drive hooked up to my quad desktop instance. I have several different instances of going on because I want it to only look at what it's pulling from our ecosystem. I don't want it also searching there. Also, it is so incredibly tempting. It's like a squirrel that a dog sees. It's like, oh, there's this folder over here that your manager created that looks like it might be remotely what we're looking for. And then it starts going and opening up things, and then you're like, hold on. When it comes to deciding which model to do the job to save tokens, I find that I only really want to talk to Fable as a human. I'm not really interested in talking to some of the lower models because unless I'm feeling really like a coach that day where I get to be like, this is what it's like to do this thing correctly, I'd rather Fable do that. What is it? It come up with a plan, which means that I only really use Fable in like planning mode. Like, let's talk about this, and now you go do it. It feels like that has also helped when it comes to overall cost of the tokens we're consuming. Obviously, the more narrow the scope of what I share, the less it has to churn. And so that's just like a practice that we've also run into.
I think it's pretty interesting that the industry as a whole had gone from like this idea of token maxing, right, to now the next chapter will be like token minning or token min maxing, or like how do we efficiently get that. So it's very similar, Heather, what you said. Like what I follow with some clients is planning, like, pick the best model out there for the planning stage. Because I have found that down the lane, you save a lot of money that way, right? So different agents that we can configure, we can instruct and say, if you're an implementer agent, right, you're not allowed to use any high level models or anything like that, right? This is your scope and you stay in the lane. Even if the plan is wrong, just follow the plan because that's what we've approved. And one thing I've found, we talked about feedback loops earlier. What's really interesting is if you do have like different agents kind of evaluating a task and talking to each other, one thing I found is agents are really good at inventing work, right? Because now like you've instructed it, hey, like you be robust, like make sure everything's good to go. And they just keep going in loops, arguing with each other for hours and hours, and really no decision has been made, right? So how do we break that loop? Because you're just wasting time at that point. These are some interesting things that I've run into as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know. I'm sure we've all been stuck in that error loop where it's like, fixing it. And then I noticed it's a lot when this was like earlier, like maybe a year and a half ago when I was using Lovable or things like that. It'd just say like, fixing it. And then it would just keep going over the same error. And honestly, sometimes I was just like, I don't care right now. I'm just going to keep talking to it. This is heavily subsidizing the time. But but I did want to touch on a couple of things. This is from a little bit back. We were talking about, deterministic tooling. And I mentioned this on the last one, but Kelsey Hightower had a really great talk at PlatformCon called Zero Token Architecture. And basically, and I was doing this because like I was learning Kubernetes, like I said in the last one. I didn't have a Kubernetes cluster sitting on my desk about a year and a half ago. Now I do. And I had to learn Kubernetes. I'm still learning Kubernetes. And, I usually just have like an agent with me getting to help me with stuff. And then like at some point I'm like, I don't need to keep asking it. There's certain things where I could just say like, write me a script, or like also, Nick, you should probably know what that kubectl apply thing does now. Like there's part of it's just me being lazy, but I think it's interesting that and I've seen this with the agents do this on their own too, but it's like I don't know, like when I migrated my website from like 11e to Astro and I merged some stuff, I'm just like, can you convert all these? And then like obviously it could do them one by one, spending all kinds of tokens, but instead it generated a script to do the migration. So like I just to basically say like the more deterministic stuff you can put in the stack, the better, you know. And if the agents can help you do that, that's awesome. And the other thing I was going to say is, like, obviously FinOps is going to become more important, like we've been saying. The routers will probably start even maybe throttling people, like, hey, Jim, you used all your credits this month, you know, I don't know. But, like, I feel like the router is going to be like a central focus point for a lot of this stuff, not just picking models. And the only other thing I'll say is, like, I mentioned this on the last one too, but I had to give a talk. I was giving a talk last year at All Things Open about zero trust security architecture, and it was using a Kubernetes cluster. And this is literally the first time I built one, and I blew about like $350 US doing it. And at the time, I was like, this is over like maybe 2 days, but at the time I was like, oh shit, you know, like my CEO's like, what are you doing, man? But he didn't bat an eye. Like they don't cap us or anything. They just encourage us to use it. But the interesting thing was, like, sure, I blew that money. I did get it working for my demo, for my talk, which was super important. I learned a bit along the way. But on the flip side, I didn't have to pull in any coworkers who are salaried employees, take them out of the flow state or their, agentic psychosis. So, like, sometimes, like, spending that cash might actually be cheaper, as well. It could obviously still be improved in terms of the token spend, but just kind of wanted to mention those things. I know, Heather, you mentioned you're curious, like, what people are using, like harnesses and stuff. Maybe we could kind of switch over to that topic. Like, what are you using as your agents? Is everybody on Claude Code? Are you using Pi, OpenClaw, like a buffet of everything? So, I don't know, since you asked the question, Heather, why don't you go first?
Okay. So I guess the three areas we would do is, like, what are you using when you wake up in the morning and it's not work related? That's kind of the first one, right? What do you actually use as an end user? Because that's different. Obviously in DevRel, man, we have to touch everything. So we have to know how everything works, which that might be more attached to your work. And then there's, like, what does work tell you can use? Like, what are you allowed to use for that?
Yep.
For whatever you got. And the next one, though, is really, like, what, like, what is your setup with those, like, models and harnesses, right? So when it comes to personal stuff, I find over time, like, my hands really get quite, I've been gardening and stuff, and they get quite tired, and I'm tired of typing. So anything that is voice driven in my personal life, I do that. That's built in, of course, to, like, Claude's mobile app, but I can use Whisperflow with several things as well. I tend to do that. And this is why. When it comes to everyday stuff I'm trying to keep track of, because I think I've mentioned that even though I'm working on a memory product, my memory is actually terrible. So when it comes to this, I use Granola for freaking everything. And that is because I need to know, wait, are you going to talk to me about how to do things better with my garden or whatever? Hold on, let me just, like, do a voice note. And the reason I use that is because they have an MCP server. And then I just always pull it right away, the entire transcript right down verbatim, and not just, like, the gist. It bothers me tremendously that Zoom gives me a bunch of summaries that I don't care about. And I'm like, no, I want to know what they said, because I have the takeaway I had, like the impression. And then it turns out, actually, they said something else, or their perspective was different. But unless I knew exactly what they said, our AI assistants can't help us with that, right? They need to know exactly what was said. So that is part of my personal, how I function every day. I have not gone down the, like, OpenClaw or Mez one exactly, because Mima hasn't already built something that is like a self-changing harness that monitors our whole house. And when we tell it that we don't understand it, it's actually inside of the loop. So it will change how the UI works on the fly. And so that's kind of become our version of that. When it comes to work, we're a cursor house. And when I first came on board, and that has all sorts of problems now because there's, like, things that change a lot when it comes to what harnesses we have access to. models we have access to, how much we can spend. And we had a guy who just came in and said, look, I can just do so much more right now with my setup, that all the engineers looked at him and said, how are you able to spend that little amount of tokens but still get things done? So we now have both options. We have Cursor, and then we have Claude Enterprise available to all of our engineering team. When it comes to everybody else, they were able to bring their own AI agent, which of course is a fun agent gateway security compliance thing for our IT company to deal with. But which is good. I would say that we have extreme FOMO about tools that other people have, we don't have, and so we get to experience all of it. And when it comes to the models that we've started like landing on, we were very sad that Gemini stopped being able to be used on GitHub repos as a PR linter. It was great. It was probably one of the better ones. I was really surprised how good it was. So we built our own, and we just used Gemini's model to power it because we liked it so much. And we also use that for any images and to watch YouTube videos for us to give us summaries of what had happened in it, because it's one of the few things that can do that. And then for everything else, we have a good 50-50 split on whether or not people want to use OpenAI's models or they want to use Anthropic's models, but mostly the architects have felt like Fable is worth the planning phase as well. It's not just me, but it's very expensive, and so we only do it if we're like, let's have a meeting, if we really want to, and say, what can we bring to the meeting that's useful already, and that's usually when we do that. Other than that, actually we just give everybody a budget and say, do what you want within this box of tokens. And we find that this, that restriction is the mother of invention, and people are doing all sorts of really cool things because of that. And that was probably one of the best things we did. So that is overall kind of what I've got going on. Sorry, that was a lot.
It's all good. It's all good. I think you wanted to jump in there, Serge.
A few things. I love that saying. I say it all the time. And like in my mind, it's necessity is the mother of invention. But I feel like, yes, constraints breed creativity. I love that. I mainline Gemini Gemini 3.1 Pro for over a year, and I was really happy about it. These days, because I have so many projects, then I have Claude. I have like 3 different Claude accounts from like different organizations, and then I'll use the right one for the organization. I also have Codex. Soul on Extra High is my main driver right now, and I really like Soul for one specific project that I'm working on, which is a React Native app for Android and iOS. And there's this CLI and MCP server by Software Mansion called Argent. And that thing is fantastic at driving simulators, emulators, and real devices. And nice. I have found that Soul is the model that best works with it, with my highly curated agent persona that I showed you. But then I have this. I'll show my screen here again, and I'll share the link as well. I have a couple other tools. So this one, CPain. Great. This one, CPain, is a Tmax orchestrator. So I have a really beefy development server. I have moved all of my development onto that server. It's running Ubuntu. Nothing to do with CPain. And what this lets me do, and really easily, is have multiple profiles. And then I can spin up a terminal and launch a profile, and it'll go and create multiple windows for me and split windows into panes and things like that. Herder does this and CMux does this, but I am on Windows, and so I feel like Silicon Valley doesn't love me. So I took matters into my own hands and built this. And the idea here being these sessions keep running, and for one project, I'll have a couple sessions with Codex, and then I'll have one with Fable. Or I'll have another one with open code that is talking to my self-hosted models. So it really depends on the project. I am trying all the models that I can try. I will die on this hill that I want to bring all of this experience with me into any tool, any system. And so, yeah, like I'm just optimizing for my own workflow. Probably this is a point where I would want to have other people take a look at it and tell me what's good and what isn't, and like make it more accessible to other people.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I have to run, but also I'm going to leave you with something that I'm probably the biggest skill minimalist in this group. I don't use skills because I think that they put the kibosh on new models because they don't know how to use it. And so I'll always start over again with fresh every time with models until I feel like I really do need to bring something in that like tames it. I just that gives me the most real like experience of the model is just going with zero skill. All right, see you later.
Heather, thanks for hanging, Heather.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, in regards to that, I use skills a lot, but yeah, I've read that. I can't remember if it was Boris from Anthropic that said that anytime a new model comes out, just wipe your agents MD, your skills, and then like see what. I guess honestly, this would probably be where evals kind of kick in, where you say like, okay, let me run the evals. What degraded here? Okay, it looks like I need to bring back this skill still. You know, like I imagine you could keep it. And yeah, I don't know if I would completely wipe things, but maybe I would if I had the confidence with the evals and like because like. You know, obviously every piece of text you add is always going to be passed along. There's like, like if you know the normies might not realize this, but you're getting the system prompt, tool calls, like skills, like there's a ton of stuff that just accumulates. So like, it kind of makes sense that you need to tend the garden every now and then. I think. But
yeah, I had a tweet about skills just the other day where I see lots of people saying they're anti-patterns. You shouldn't be using them. You should be wiping them, like stuff like that. And I actually think that it is good advice for like the average user, but at the same time, all of the engineers I respect the most right now are spending like 3/4 of their development time building and maintaining skills. So like there's something there. There's a reason why they're spending so much time on it, but you can't just do it passively. Like you need to really work hard to make sure those skills stay up to date, stay high quality, they're not blowing your context. But if you can do that, I think there is a payoff at the end.
I think there's kind of two types of skills we have to think about here. One type is the skills that tell the agent how to use a public tool that is publicly documented.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that, well, the agent's been trained again. It's got the latest documentation. Those are the skills I could probably get rid of. You know, do I need to have a skill that tells my agent how to use this off-the-shelf tool? Probably not. But then you have the skills that you've written yourself, the skills that are task-oriented, the skills that bring together different components. Those are the ones I would not wipe every single time. You know, I take the view that when I'm in a project, I will bring in the skills for the tools into that folder. But I will the top level skills I have are not the tool skills and not the skills for using. Yeah, I don't install the Arise skills, for example, at the user level. I install those per project, but at the user level, I have the skills I have written for. If you are writing a thing about this is there's some rules about how you do the research. You know, make sure I've written a skill that saves research every single time and stuff like that. So those skills at user level every time will not wipe those, shared between the .agents and .claude folders so that all the agents can use them. And then the tool skills I install every time into every project, and those are the ones that I will try and trim out.
No, for sure. Like I've been building these interactive courses recently. I'm not sure who has super loud background noise going on, but I don't. Okay, there we go. Cool.
Was it you?
No, it wasn't me. I don't know what it was. Oh, okay. So like I've been writing these interactive guides because like a lot of stuff I do, it's like with infrastructure, and like one of the, I guess, points of friction in terms of trying to demonstrate how our product works is like people want to try it. It's not in the cloud. It's like it's always self-hosted. So I found this really good playground course where it's online called Ixie Muse, So I've been building out courses there. Like the first one I built, it was, it took me a while because like I'm learning the platform and stuff. And then like I started building up this skill to say like, I developed like a rubric, like other stuff like standards, like there has to be a setup and all that, like just stuff that I want to see consistently. And it's been so helpful for me to just like, as I create new lessons or tutorials, like the amount of time I save every time is exponentially getting, faster and faster. And the platform actually just released a MCP recently. So there's probably some stuff in my skill that I should probably, kind of pull out. That's something on my to-do list, but it's just, honestly, if I didn't have those skills, it would take me forever to write these things. And it's, because like then I can just focus on like, I know what I'm doing. This is the flow of what I want to do. And then the rest it's like bing, bang, boom. I have all these like startup scripts. And that's the other thing that people are always talking about the skills as just markdown, but like skills can also have scripts that come with them, like software, you know what I mean? And yeah, like lots of nods here, but like, I don't hear a lot of people talk about that normally. It's always just like they wrote the MD file, So it's like, it's just a reminder for people in the chat that it's not just text.
Just real quick to give an example of that for like my workflows. Like I have a whole flow where I have 3 skills. One will start by like reaching out for if I want to take like a public domain book that's on like Internet Archive. It will like bring in that book. It will clean it. It will run OCR on it. And this is all using AutoShow, my CLI. And then it will go through, I have other scripts then to go through the process, like turn it into an audiobook. And like this all involves scripts, but at the same time, there's also some parts of like, I just want the model to be able to look at the text and like clean it and find things that would be very hard to define in a script. So it can reach out to both. It can do the deterministic and the non-deterministic things, going back to that, which is really cool because then it has the ability to save tokens if it needs to run a script, but then if it needs to reach outside and just let the model look at a file and like decide what to do to it. It can do both, and it can do all that within a single skill.
Yeah, basically it's a natural language pipeline, isn't it? That's essentially all it is. It's a natural language pipeline that calls out to code-based components.
Yep.
I think as well, one thing a lot of people don't realize is your skill does not have to be one file. It can be broken up into multiple files with references, which is really good because then you can have your skill. If you are doing X, load this markdown file with instructions. If you're doing Y, load this markdown file. And suddenly you're not loading, 40,000 tokens worth of skill. You're loading, 100 tokens worth of skill. And then that will then load the relevant extra file. And I mean, something I was doing across our Arise skills is just like, the more we break it down, it doesn't need, if you're instrumenting a Python app, you don't need to have all the instructions for instrumenting a JavaScript and a Go app in the same file. It should just be, if it's Python, call this file, JavaScript, call this file, and so on. So we need to think about skills a bit more like code. You think about the kind of the dry principles and componentization and solid and all these kind of like coding standards we've been doing for 30, 40, 50 years. Some of that applies to these natural language pipelines. It applies to skills.
I love it that we're rediscovering domain-driven design. In the age of AI.
We kind of are. We're literally saying that we've learned how to do all this stuff over the years and it works in deterministic code. Now we just have to work out how we apply the same thing to the non-deterministic, and the same patterns work. And I'm giving a talk at KCDC next week on eval-driven development, and it's test-driven development, but you put a little eval step in the middle, so it works in the world of AI. And so it's how do we take what we've learned in the past 30, 40, 50 years of building software and apply it to non-determinism. So I think we're going to discover a lot more of these patterns that that were well established still make sense now.
I think when the industry
code scale, it's your market scale.
I think when the industry like debates about like basics, does basics matter anymore, right? I think the basics do matter, but it's not the basics related to syntax, right? It's the basics like the concepts that you were talking about. Like how do we take that same idea and apply it to an agentic world, right?
Like we can development. As you say, like test-driven development, now you can do it with AI and it's like way better,
we're getting close to time only because I have to jump in an Uber in about 15 minutes. So this has been an amazing conversation. Let's keep talking, but let's I guess like as we kind of wrap things up, maybe if there's some final talking points each of you want to share, maybe, and also shamelessly plug away.
Yeah.
I'll go first. If I would want people to take anything from this conversation, the things that I've said today is, distrust your tooling and reevaluate. Things will change without you realizing that they changed, and the more closely you introspect, the easier it is to stay in control. I would love some feedback on these things that I've shown you today. I'm working to clean up the things that I said are going to be open source, and we'll make them open source, and I'll share the link. The last one that I shared is open source for now. And then finally, if you're in Miami, you should come to Hack Night. I would love to host you, and I would love to have you demo whatever you're doing to our audience.
Cool. Thanks, man. Jim, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, basically the same thing. Distrust your AI. I always talk about how AI sucks, and I do that because I want people to approach AI from a level of cynicism. Always approach the AI as assuming it's broken, and that way you will put the right testing and guardrails in to make sure it's not broken. So things like evals, guardrails, all that kind of stuff are really, really important. So don't just do things on vibes. Think about with your AI, how can I test this? How can I demonstrate it's working? So just keep that in mind. AI sucks unless you have the test to prove otherwise. Check out arise.com because they're the people who pay me to do this kind of stuff. Great tools for evals and the whole self-improving software loop. And if you're going to be at KCDC next week, Kansas City Developers Conference, come find me there. I'm talking about eval-driven development, and I'm always happy to geek out on how badly AI sucks and just how we're making it better.
Awesome. Do you want to go ahead, Avi?
Yeah. So my takeaway I just want to add is that I think when we're working with this agentic world, right, I would say resist the temptation to fix something the old way. And there's a big discussion about this. Like we went from like, who should write the code to who should read the code now, right? And my explanation is this: like, yeah, it may be true that we all have the knowledge to read the code, be able to do it the old way, right? But what if we just entered the industry yesterday? What if we were 19, 20 years old? Like, what if I was that person? I won't have that knowledge at all, right? And I was that person many, many years ago when I had to learn something new. Like, so how would I do it? Like, so I think if we approach it like that, and I think we can have better material that we can even tell the folks who are entering the industry today, like, this is how you would do it with the tooling that's available to you. What we can help is the concepts, the basics, the things that we look for, right? Like distrusting the AI, like, yeah, just don't blindly trust what it's generating. But hey, can we use another agent to kind of have a debate with different agents to figure out, if we can solve this, right? That's the approach that I like to take, because I think it's scalable to the future. So something I want to leave everyone with. Yeah, I'll be at KCDC as well next week. Is it next week?
Yep, next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be giving 2 talks. So would love to meet a lot of folks. I know, Jim, you're going to be there. Heather is going to be there. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome. And yeah, Anthony, if you just kind of want to round it up here.
Yeah, so you can follow me at AJC Web Dev on all the main platforms. If you enjoyed this stream, I do my own stream that are very similar to this. Nikki T is one of my all-time guests, actually. And I want to extend an invitation to all 3 of you, Jim, Avi, Serge. Really enjoying getting to meet you guys. This has been an awesome conversation. I would love to continue to hear more about what you're working on. So I just want to throw that invitation out there. I'll message you as well. And yeah, I would say get ambitious. Like, get to the point where your agent fails so you can figure out where that is, because they can do some pretty incredible things. and they're not, magic. They can't do everything, but until you kind of find that boundary, you're not really going to know. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about just this new way of developing with AI, is that we can be so much more ambitious in like what we want to build and the time we can build it. And like, you can make software reliably with AI as well. You just have to have the right guardrails in place, So that's what I would say.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. And I'll just round it up. Like, we're doing these. I started this last week. I don't know how many of these we're going to do. This is the second one. We have volume 3, a la Guardians of the Galaxy. Robbie Wagner from Whiskey Web and whatnot, and a few others are going to be joining in the next one. That's going to be September 15th, same time. And yeah, I guess I'll just round up with some of the stuff. +1 everything said here, and also it's like, I think at the end of the day, AI is just a tool, and people can use a tool well, or they can use it poorly. So I think a lot of the things we discuss here, skills, understanding how the models work, knowing what context is, and like just kind of understanding the underpinnings. I think one of the best things you could probably do is just start off with a bear harness and just see where you can go with that, and like understand the underpinnings. But this has been great. Thanks so much, everybody. Also including Heather, that to hop off early. The plug I'll say is I'll be at Commit Your Code. Avi, I think you're there too.
Yeah, I'll be there too.
Yeah.
In a couple days.
I'm heading there literally right after this, and I'll be speaking about creating your first MCP app. So for folks curious about that, I'll be building one live as part of the talk. So check that out. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Great convo, great chat. If everybody just doesn't mind staying on for 1 second, and we will see you again on the 15th. Take care, everybody.